I think. I did change.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to call to order the meeting for the Franklin County Community School Corporation for December. If I could get you to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance and then observe a moment of silence afterwards, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda was called to order, actually. I guess the second item is the Pledge of Allegiance. And the third item, we are here now, is the consent agenda items.
Mr. Isaacs, do you want to give a clarification on the Chinese position before we get a motion?
Sure. Where you had an unfortunate event where we had the Chinese teacher resign earlier in the year. We were able to find a sub. I mean, trying to find a sub is hard enough, but trying to find someone in Chinese. Luckily, we have Miami of Ohio close. We were able to find someone that's working on her doctorate, and she was coming in 2 days a week and started on October 5th. So as we prepare for second semester, we were worried about losing dual credit. One, finding a Chinese person for the second and being there every day, plus keeping dual credit. And to do that, we had to, I'm recommending tonight that we hire 2 ladies to do that. One will still be the one working on a doctorate. Butler says that would fulfill, if we hire her, even though she's doing 2 days a week, as long as we have someone else in there the other days of the week. That's why we're going with the second one that does have her master's, but hasn't done her student teaching. So she'll actually be doing her student teaching while she's in there 5 days a week. And then the one with the doctorate, Ms. Sang, who's been doing a fabulous job, correct? Will be in there Tuesdays and Thursdays, which they'll co-teach during that time. So that's why we're in this situation. We're only doing it through second semester. Then we kind of have a semester of an interview and decide on which one we'd like to go with. Anything to add to that? Okay, there we go. That's why we're there.
Is there any discussion? Can I get a motion? Katie and Rick? All in favor, raise your hand. Looks like 7-0. And I can't see that far. Next up is financial reports.
The corporation financial report, the education fund balance as of November 30th, 2023 was $4,395,124.90. A year ago, this balance was $3,999,576.50. The operations fund balance as of November 30th was $1,973,863.84. A year ago, this balance was $2,411,015.82. The investment interest earned as of November 30th was, it was $358,749.79. This is compared to $23,512.51 a year ago.
This is a discussion only item. Is there any discussion?
Yes. When we make that money, does the state look at that and say, well, you've got this much more money, so we're going to take that much money away from you?
They do not. Our basic grant that we receive from the state is based off of our ADM, so our student enrollment and all the qualifications that go in with that. So they factor in, obviously, all the factors of our honors diploma, special ed. There's lots of factors, but no, they do not see this and take money away.
The question I have for you is every month this year, it seems like we have a growing balance, and then we're talking about school closings. Can you explain why we need to conserve the money that we have when we see positive gains right now?
Mm-hmm. So over the last 3 years now since COVID, and since we have taken a lot of different measures to kind of restructure the finances and tighten up a little bit where we could and where Tammy and the administration team had seen fit. And so we are seeing that. Along with that, during COVID, we received a lot of aid, and we were able to offset a lot of expenditures onto that. And so over the last 3 years, we have been slowly growing our funds. Now that time has actually, as of Friday, one of those grants is ending. We do have one more that will continue for about another year. But after that, we will start using the money that we have grown over the last 3 years.
I would anticipate that that third ESSER grant won't last a year. I'm hoping through the remainder of the school year. But beyond
And
that,
the other thing is if you compare the monthly expenditures to what we have in reserve, it's not very much, is it?
Can you clarify that question?
How many months, if we were not to receive another penny today, how long could we spend without having to worry about belling up? How many months of expenditures would that allow?
For the education fund, it would be about 8 months. The operation, it would be about 6.
So 6 to 8 months. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, next up, cafeteria report.
The cafeteria fund balance as of November 30th is $383,462.44. This is compared to $593,804.73 a year ago. The latchkey fund balance as of November 30th is $15,080.85. This is compared to $5,540.63 a year ago.
Are there any questions?
I want to make a comment about the cafeteria fund. As you all know, Jessica DeFawcett took over about a month ago, and she's doing a fabulous job. So when we see this, just know it is because there has been a delay from when we receive reimbursements from the USDF. It is on a delay. This happens every year. About this time, Courtney actually received those back payments. Jessica has not received them yet, so we are still waiting on reimbursements from about September. So it's just something that happens every year. So we expect to see that jump back up next month.
Okay, the update on the Bath CD.
So last month I discussed we had a CD coming due at Bath State Bank for $1 million. It did come due on the 7th, but they hold it in a money market for 10 days. I am recommending tonight that we keep it with Bath State Bank for another 12 months at a 5% interest.
This is a discussion and action item. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion? Beth and Rick, all in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is celebrations.
yes, before we do our educator and support staff, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ms. South. We have a very special guest in the audience with us tonight that I'd like her to introduce.
All right, good evening. The Lilly Endowment Community Scholarship provides full tuition, requires fees, and an allocation for required books and equipment for 4 years of undergraduate study for a full-time student, leading to a baccalaureate degree at any Indiana public or private college or university accredited by the North Central Association of Colleges and Schools. This year, FCHS is pleased to announce that this year's recipient of the Lilly Endowment Scholarship for Franklin County is Miss Kristen Eisen. She is accompanied this evening by her mother, Mrs. Stephanie Eisen, her sister, Carly Eisen, and grandparents. Miss Kristen plans to attend Notre Dame or Indiana University and study law. Kristen currently is an intern at the prosecutor's office here in Franklin County. Kristen is also the president of the Spanish and the FBLA clubs this year, in which she states that she loves to go to meetings and will miss the clubs next year. In Kristen's free time, she likes to play tennis, hang out with friends, and loves to watch movies. One FCHS teacher who has inspired Kristen greatly is Mrs. Hudipole. She states that Mrs. Hudipole was a huge reason as to why she got the scholarship, and she is very grateful for her and her parents' support. Congratulations, Kristen, on this accomplishment, and good luck to you as you pursue your career in law.
You should be very, very proud of that. And the parents also.
Can I say one thing about Kristen real quick? So she is my wife's cousin. But one thing about Kristen is not only is it school and athletics, but if you go anywhere in town, you're going to run into her because she has 3 jobs, I believe, right? 3 or 4? So every time you go to a different place, you run into her. So she does a lot of work in and out of school.
Ms. South, would you grab Kristen and family members?
Just get the fam.
Okay, next up is the Educator of the Month. She's hiding.
I know you're not shy, so get up here. So tonight is my honor to recognize Mrs. Chelsea Stinger as my December Educator of the Month. She teaches 4th grade at Mount Carmel, and she's been been with the Franklin County for 18 years. I didn't realize it's been that long. About half of my career here has been half of yours. So she has her bachelor's in elementary ed from Franklin College, and she has her master's in education from Indiana Wesleyan. And about a couple years ago during COVID, she was able to take 12 hours at IU East in digital instruction at the cost of IU East. There was a grant, so she probably one of the leading technology teachers at Mount Carmel as well. She was nominated by this honor from a colleague. We asked this colleague why Chelsea should be recognized for this honor, and her response was, Mrs. Stinger goes over and above for all students in her classroom daily. She is resourceful and creative and ensures her students have equal access to content, materials, and opportunities in her classroom. She is just not afraid to try new things, works tirelessly to meet the variety and needs of her students. She's creative in her teaching presentations, and she has extremely high expectations for her students, and they work hard for her in return. She never stops striving to grow herself. She's a great role model for her students as well as our young teachers. She's also co-athletic director at Mount Carmel, runs the robotics team, and the 4-H Dairy Cattle Project with her husband. So, and an active member of the church, because I've seen you on Facebook, and you're doing all kinds of things. So, really not say when it says in her free time, which you have very little of, reading, hiking, baking, and spending time with her family, because I know I see you in the woods all the time. So, we asked Mrs. Stinger what she loves about her job, and the best part of my job, and probably the most challenging, is inspiring students to want to learn and love it. Another amazing part of my job is all the support I get from coworkers, administration, and family members who spend endless hours helping me to be successful. So please join me in recognizing Mrs. Stinger as our educator. your guests.
Also, my husband Jim is here, and then I have a freshman, Luke, and my sixth grader is Charlie. And I have lots of staff members here to help out and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent job. Next up is support staff of the month.
My pleasure to introduce you to December's support staff of the month, Mr. Randy Edwards, and we just figured out we came in to the high school at the exact same time, and we're both pretty scared. And but it's been great working with him for the past almost 10 years. Randy he's now serves as our IT support staff, our auditorium manager, and a bus driver. So we try to keep him busy. Randy joined Franklin County Community as a substitute teacher, where he served for 10 years, then made a switch to support staff 9.5 years ago. He was the head custodian at Franklin County High School when I came in. This makes his 19th year in the school corporation. He attended the University of the Cumberlands, receiving a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, continued his education at Southern Seminary, receiving a Master's in Divinity and Theology. Randy was nominated for this honor by a teacher at Franklin County High School. When asked what makes Randy stand out from his colleagues, he responded, "He is incredibly hardworking, organized, and does nothing but impress us on how passionate and hardworking he is." He also noted that he covers all the high school, middle school, and he drives a school bus every day. He should be recognized for all his incredible hard work. Outside of school, Mr. Edwards participates in the community as a pastor of the Elm Grove Southern Baptist Church and sings with the For the King Quartet. In his free time, Randy enjoys spending time with his wife, Tanya, their children, and their growing families. He also enjoys exercising, and this guy's a year older than me. And as I pull up, I see him running across the parking lot.
I have to clock back in.
It's understandable then. He also enjoys exercising, reading his Bible, and working on music for the quartet he's involved in. When asked what the best part of his job is, Randy stated, "Trying to make a positive impact in the lives of students, faculty, and staff, resolving Chromebook issues for students, projecting a daily positive thought on the screen in my office, and hearing the comments from students as to what the positive thought means to them. Helping a student realize if you're afraid to fail, you will never do the things you're capable of doing," which is John Wooden. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Take a quick picture.
Randy, who did you bring tonight as your guest?
Yes.
My wife.
Your wife. She's hiding in the back.
Which we just stole from Conner County this year.
Public comments.
We have none for
Correct.
Thank you, Randy. At this point, anyone who would like to take leave of the meeting is more than welcome to do so, as we will continue on down our business items. So if you would like to leave, feel free to do so at this point. We have no public comments and we have no statements from employees. So our next up is the superintendent's report.
Just an update on the survey that was conducted by SchoolComm. Those results have been compiled, and they will be shared at the next College Success Coalition meeting, which is December 18th at 4:15 in the public library. So I guess what I would like to know from the board you don't have to give me an answer today, but if you can let me know within the next, if you can let me know by Wednesday if you want to attend, because if I have more than 3 board members, obviously I got to advertise that we're having a meeting. So
What time?
December 18th at 4:15 at the local library. And
I can tell you I would like to attend.
okay. So just give me a call or give me an email.
If we cannot attend, Tammy, how else is the best way to
I
get
don't know
that?
what I'm going to get from them, but if I get something tangible, I'll make sure that I push that out to board members.
Or we'll
So,
take you out and flog you,
Yeah.
whichever option.
yes, I will. Just don't know what to
No,
expect.
there will be a report to look through. It is cumbersome.
Yep.
And
I'm hoping the presentation gives me a little bit more details,
insight
so,
on what
yeah.
we draw from that.
Monday?
Okay,
So right now I just have Francis and Kevin. Is that it? And Randy? Okay. Anybody else?
That's 3 right there, so.
well,
if
you
I have
have
one more,
another
yes.
one,
Yep.
you would have to advertise.
I'd
this
have to
meeting.
advertise, so please let me know.
Probably.
Probably. Okay, I'll just advertise
And she'll probably advertise. How about that?
regardless. And then, okay.
Okay, next up is old business.
So last board meeting, we had, five of the last policies regarding transportation. So I need those approved for tonight. Is there any questions on those?
Any discussion?
The only question I had was, we had asked Brittany about
Oh, I'm
turning the
sorry.
ignition off and the camera's
Yes.
still working. Did we add anything, or will we still?
She has,
Or is that,
she
would
has
that be
requested
something
that,
separate
yes,
from the
yes,
policy
but she
itself?
has already requested that they do
I'm
that.
sorry.
And we'll change it in the driver handbook.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Kevin called me earlier and
Yes.
that slipped me.
Yes, she has already.
Is there any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Beth, seconded.
Rick.
Rick, all in favor? 7-0. Okay, now on to new business.
So the first item is, let's see, it would have been back in November, the board approved policy 9130, which is public complaints and concerns. As part of that, there is a piece in there that talks about library materials or any kind of curriculum materials. So what I'm asking you is to approve the request for reconsideration. So what that means is if a community member or a parent or guardian is questioning a textbook or something that's in the library, they have to fill this form out first as to why. And the first point of contact, and it is detailed in our board policy, would be obviously the media specialist or the building principal. And then it goes from there based on whether they're satisfied with the result or not. It could get to a board meeting, but there is a process for that. So the policy has been approved by the board. So the form mirrors the policy. Ask for the reasons why, what kind of format, what do you believe is specifically wrong, and ask what page number. So it gives a lot of detail for the committee that's making that decision, whether it should be removed or not, based on how they fill out this form. So once this is approved, all of this will go on our corporation website. All the building principals will have it. They already have it now. We've had a removable form, but obviously it's revised to match your board policy that you approved.
So the motion would go that we would,
Approve
in
the form.
addition, approve the form.
Yeah, you've already
In
approved the
addition,
policy.
okay.
Yes, correct.
Any other discussion?
Not sure if, there's no full discussion, but Amber and I were at the school law seminar Friday, and we discussed some of the things that they were talking about on this exact issue. And when it does get to committee, I would like to send on to you, Tammy, to look at, and Francis and everybody, but kind of a guideline or some questions for the committee to have. We were
I
talking
have
about-
those internal, I do.
Right.
What to expect and to guide that conversation.
It's kind
Yes.
of a grading scale is what they were
Yeah.
using, so.
Yeah, it's probably, it's always been there, but now it becomes policy. So I do have that kind of a guidance, how the committee should handle that, so.
Thank you. Good question, Kevin. Any
I
other
have a
comments?
question. Just to clarify for my own and for maybe others, but the process as of right now, it sounds like it's not that different. We're just correcting the form to mirror the new policy.
It is, the policy is different than in the past because there's timelines now. So I believe, once that, form is filled out, the committee has 10 days to respond. And if the person that submitted it does not like that, then they have 30 days to request a meeting in front of the board. So there are timelines now, and it specifically, the form specifically asks about obscene and information that's harmful to minors, which was not there before. So those are significant changes in the policy. So
All required by the new law effective
Correct.
January 1st.
correct. The policy obviously has been approved, but this will be the final piece that has to go, that goes in effect January 1.
Are there any other questions? Can we get a motion? Katie and Kevin. All in favor, raise your hand. Some no. Okay, now we're up to review of board policy for filling vacancies and appointments of board members.
Yeah, this was a request from a board member some time ago, so I finally remembered to put it on the board agenda. So we do have a policy, policy 0142.3, vacancies and appointment of board members. It's a couple of pages long, but when you read it, a couple things stand out. One, it says it must be filled by remaining board members. So the board member exiting is not part of that process. It must be filled within 30 days, which I believe is in code. And if you fail to do that, then it is appointed by the circuit court judge. So we see the couple times that I've done it, it's been on Facebook. It has been on our website, seeking interest, and then we have put it in the newspaper. So those are the three ways. And then we probably announced it at a board meeting as well. Interest parties submit everything in writing, and it goes to the board president. So here's where it gets interesting. So if you have, you can interview no fewer than 3 unless fewer than 3 are interested, if that makes sense. You can meet in executive session to develop a list of who you're going to interview. So if you would have 5, we would meet, or you would meet in executive session, you could narrow that list down to 3.
Would they attend the executive session for us to narrow it down, or is it,
No,
we just look over their qualifications?
You would talk about their qualifications. And all you're doing is narrowing the list. You're not discussing, but you are allowed to do that in executive session. So I think where the question comes in is the voting procedure.
We just want to make that
We need
rock
to make
solid.
and I suggested today when I talked to Francis that we add, if we're voting for a board vacancy, then no board member can abstain, and I think that will take care of the problem. I don't know, just throwing that out there, we could add that qualifier.
When we vote on that, there's no phone vote or Zoom vote, it has to be in
No.
person?
Yes.
Is that in the policy?
I think it's pretty much the law.
Is it pretty much the law?
It's in, it is in the other one.
Okay, that's fine.
In our voting, it says, board member must be physically present in order to cast a valid vote unless otherwise permitted to participate in and vote during board meetings remotely or virtually pursuant to executive order. And then,
I know if you're voting.
where did I
by
highlight it?
teacher
It
contract.
says if they vote
Yeah.
remotely, they have to be able to be seen and heard.
Correct. Yeah. That would be very difficult for us because we'd have you zooming on here, And the audience would need to be able to, that would,
Is that seen and heard or
Correct.
seen or heard?
and.
And heard, okay.
I mean, just for discussion, would not feel comfortable not allowing people to abstain, because I feel like that should be your right to abstain if you have certain feelings about something, or even if it were a conflict of interest of some sort with somebody who was interviewing. So I feel like taking that option away might not be the best route.
So,
What would you suggest then?
Because you have 6, it could be 3-3.
Right.
I understand what Brandy means. I think forcing someone to vote, I mean, I think ideally, of course, we want everyone to vote. That's the job,
Right.
to make that decision. But I don't know of the case of, like Brandy mentioned, a conflict of some kind that puts somebody in a hard spot.
I think that's where we need to do our homework before we get down to the vote part. I think we need to spend as much time as we need so that pretty much you have your mind made up. Now, if there's something that comes up to a participant or a person that wants to be on the board in the last hours, then you would have to deal with that. But I think you need to do your homework before you get to the vote.
so
More comments?
my question on the procedure was more of like a timeline, like the new form for book removal, like setting up a timeline for us of, we had that 30-day requirement,
Correct.
but I mean, once we have the candidates, setting up a timeline of, we know we're going to have the executive session to whittle it down.
So
within
what
this
would
many
you
days.
suggest?
How are we going to pull them in here one at a time?
I think it's a great idea. We just need to come to a
Right.
consensus on
That's what I meant.
how long.
By a procedural policy. I don't know that
A process.
kind of like the grading scale for the books is an internal. It wouldn't necessarily be in the board policy, but an internal process of how we conduct that procedure. Instead
What
of,
time frame are you thinking? 1 week
I mean,
from the times we close?
well, I do have a question. So, on the 30 days, vacancies shall be filled by the remaining members of the board within 30 days after the vacancy occurs.
Yeah.
But we can start advertising before they technically are no longer on the board, correct?
I believe
We
so.
have, yes.
So if that's the case, barring an emergency, set a timeline of, I'm trying to think, if we didn't know until the last minute, we would have to set a timeline of like a week that it's posted, or what's the
Getting
minimum?
7 of you to agree on a date is the issue.
Right.
Because,
Right.
at the
Yeah.
evening, pulling you together in executive session. And I think the first piece to that is how long do we put out the interest for? I think we did it for what? 2 weeks maybe,
2
once I
weeks.
got that vacancy, so that timeline starts. Depending on the timing, it could occur at the same night of the board meeting, it just varies. So right out of the gate, we're losing 2 weeks there. So we don't have a quick turn, we have a very quick turnaround.
Advertise minimum of 2 weeks, but not to exceed 7 days following the vacancy? Does that make sense?
I'm confused.
So if we know ahead of
7
time, if we
days?
know ahead of time, we
Before the
agree
board
to
meeting,
advertise
yeah.
it for a minimum of 2 weeks, but we don't want that 2 weeks to go longer than 1 week after our 30-day timeline has started. So a minimum of 2 weeks, but not to exceed.
So you're saying if we advertise early, 2 weeks, but no longer than 1 week from the
Because
resignation?
if I have it in writing from the member, we haven't had a board meeting yet, I can go ahead and start advertising.
But it's not official.
Sometimes
yet.
it doesn't work out as nicely because it's the same day and we have a board meeting that night. We lose that time, that window. The
I'd
timing.
go along with that. I would have no
If somebody
problem.
walked in here tonight and said, I have to move, I'm out, and we approved it for whatever
Our
reason on that
timeline
meeting,
starts.
our timeline starts.
Yes.
So now I would say 1 week, no more. But if we have notice, then we could advertise for a minimum
Up to
of
2 weeks.
Yeah. or up to 2 weeks, yeah. Up to 2 weeks, but no
Longer.
later than 7 days after the vacancy.
I think that's a good idea.
And then executive meeting scheduled for within 7 days of that, or as soon as possible, however you could word that, because I do understand it's getting all of us in the same place for the executive session with our schedule.
So you're suggesting 7 days after the deadline of receiving the applicants, meet an executive session to narrow to 3?
Correct.
So if there's only 3 people, though, we wouldn't
You would need
have
to do an
have
executive
one,
session,
right?
correct?
Correct.
Right.
And the way I read this as well, I mean, no fewer than 3. So it sounds like you don't have to narrow it down. I think it's in the best interest that you do to not muddy that water anymore.
Well, when
but
they say no
the way
fewer
that-
than 3, they mean you can't have 2 candidates coming out of a pool of 20.
If you have a pool of 5 people, though,
The most
you
can
could
whittle-
allow all
The
5 of
most you
them.
can whittle it down to.
You could
is
do
3
all
if you have
5,
more than 3.
absolutely. You
So
could.
you-
Yes, you
okay.
can, yeah.
I'm just curious of if that's not, I mean, the goal is, I think, certainly to whittle it down to avoid having weeks of, never mind, but the,
Weeks of never mind, yeah.
but, I mean, is the intent to reduce that? Should we include that the goal is to get that to 3 in some language?
I think it depends on who your candidates are.
Well, there are
Okay.
4 people on this board that signed up to fill a vacancy, myself being one of them, Katie, Brandy, and Jessica. So I think Brandy has a little bit more insight, and Katie. Jessica, there were some problems that arose from that, so that we're just trying to iron out this policy to where when we go and we come out here and we vote, we know that either the circuit judge is going to appoint it or we will. That's really what I'm after, is, it's always better if I think the board can come to a consensus on which candidate is the best candidate. But we all have personal views on which candidate is the best candidate.
And once we do know and we start advertising, we immediately set that date for the executive session. Even, we have no idea how many candidates we're gonna have, but we should set that date as soon as possible after our deadline. And if we don't have to have it, great, but we should also have the public meeting set as well, so that those candidates know as far in advance as possible, so that they can be here. To hopefully limit having them come back 2-3 times.
Yes.
I just don't want it to go like it did last time.
I think everyone's in agreement on that,
Yep.
especially Jessica.
That's right. And I think just being able to narrow it down doesn't avoid that.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
doesn't
don't
avoid
think any
that.
of these things would.
None of those avoid that,
fix
so.
situation.
I do understand the not being able to abstain. I do understand that. It's a hard spot to say that you have to pick something in case there is a real conflict. That's where I find that hard to agree to, but then again, you probably wouldn't be narrowing down to that person, right? I mean, unless we had one.
What if it was phrased as the simple majority of board members present in the room?
So I agree with Jessica that what we've just discussed doesn't really solve the problem that we had. But again, I think it's spelled out in all the policies. The only thing, I don't know if you can legally say nobody can abstain. I mean,
That's why I
a
said
choice.
we don't have to do that, but we can state. that-
So the way it is now, and the way I read it, is outside of a contract, it's a majority of board members that vote.
The remaining, it would be 6. so
Right.
majority would
But
be-
if all 6 aren't here, it's still a majority of
Correct,
whoever's
of
here.
whoever's present.
And if you abstain, it doesn't count as a vote, you just have to record it to meet the quorum requirements. What you could do is change it, I'm not saying we should, but a contract specifically is stated as, where did it go? Specifically stated that it is board action to approve or modify a contract shall require an affirmative vote of a majority of all members of the board. In the case of filling a vacancy, you would have to word it as a majority of all remaining members of the board. In that instance, it doesn't matter how many are here, you would have to have 4 votes. The way it is now,
But if you abstain, doesn't an abstention go to the acquiesce?
it wouldn't matter if you specify the number.
Okay, that's what we want to do then. I have no problem with that. Anyone else? Any comments about what Kevin just said?
If you, basically, if you specify the number of votes or put it as a majority of all remaining members.
Remaining. You just need, that's really, you just need to have that word.
Otherwise, it can be 4, in that case, even if 5 people showed up or if 4 people showed up, if you got 4 votes, you're done. If you just do the majority of those that show up, then, and abstain, you could have a 2-to-1 vote if somebody abstains and only 4 are there. So.
I'll put something together. We can look at it in January.
Do we run that by Amber?
Yep. Or probably Neil is probably the individual who works with us.
Okay, we're up to other, correct?
Yes, sir.
The appointment for Franklin County Redevelopment Commission. I personally, I'm recommending that the board appoint Ms. Sarah Duffy to serve on Franklin County Redevelopment Commission. Ms. Duffy currently serves in this position. Her current appointment expires at the end of the month. She has served this committee, or has served on this committee very well for the interest of the school board, and I will open it up for conversation. Anyone? No?
I think Sarah has represented us well. I think she's kept us updated on anything that we needed to know. It's not been easy, and Sarah's pretty much on it.
Is there a motion?
I move that we keep Sarah on the Franklin County Redevelopment Commission.
Beth and Rick, all in favor, raise your hand. Did you raise your hand, Brandy? I'm sorry, bad vision. Okay, next up is the appointment for the Brookville Redevelopment Committee. At current, Mrs. Beth Foster has decided not to pursue this position in 2024. In conversations, I don't want to speak for you, Kevin, so I'll let you volunteer on your own.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will volunteer for the appointed non-voting
Is anyone
position.
else interested in that position?
If anybody else interested. That's, I mean.
Will the person step forward and everyone else steps back? So I guess we can go ahead and entertain the motion that Kevin Kaiser receive that appointment.
Well, he'll be a recommendation.
Recommendation, sorry.
Yes.
That's
They'll make the,
the way I'm reading it.
yeah, they'll make that decision at their next board meeting, correct?
But we just need board approval of that recommendation.
Correct.
All in favor, or I'm sorry, motion?
Make a motion that we
Rick?
recommend Kevin Kaiser for that position.
And who has the second? Is that Brandy? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. That's a 7-0. Okay, legislative updates.
Our attorney, Amber Roscoe, I hope I say that correctly, attended the Indiana School Board Association School Law Seminar this past Friday. A lot of interesting things discussed, one of which was the request for removal of books from libraries. That was one of the sessions. Another was about social media, which we have had discussions here as well. And interesting to hear some of the things they say can, can't, should, shouldn't be done by the school. And then in the afternoon, mostly about recent legal developments, and the one that I will point out, it deals with, let me find where it's at. Where'd that go? Deals with regarding the rights of transgender students to use restrooms consistent with their gender identity. Essentially, this is waiting on the Supreme Court to decide if they're going to take the case up or not, so.
And if they don't, it will remain what the last,
Correct. It will go
Court
back
decided.
to, it was the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals decision, which refused to overturn the decision at that time. So that one's waiting to see, and there are one or two others that may get up to the Supreme Court that would affect us or all school corporations, so. There are some things going on in the courts. The Indiana legislature starts their next session soon, and it's supposed to be a short session, but waiting to see what comes out there.
Good luck.
any questions for Kevin? Okay, next up is the future agenda requests. Do we have any? Okay, then recognition and acknowledgements, we have none? So we go to adjournment. The next regular board meeting scheduled is for 7 o'clock Monday, January 8th of next year. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
See you next year.